have a new member class coming in next Sunday, and last new member class, the new member classes are always filled with wonderful surprises of people, great people to get to know. And in our last class was Pat Youngquist, or Reverend Pat Youngquist. I'm not going to tell you too much of her story because she may be sharing part of that, and I don't want to give that away if she's doing that. But Pat's wonderful. She's a great resource for us here. As you know, if you've been here more than a year, you know that at this time of year is our stewardship season. In 2 weeks, we'll be making our church pledge for the year 2017, which is very important because that's how we determine our budget. So be thinking about that. You'll be receiving, if you were here last Sunday, you might remember Tinkerbell. Well, Tinkerbell is our stewardship chair, and she's written you a letter, and that should be going out very soon to you. And but we also at this time of year have people share kind of their story, a little bit of their faith journey, maybe what Asbury means to them, that kind of thing. And Pat was willing to do that for us. I'm praying for her because just before she got up here, she said, "I'm allergic to flowers." So she didn't know what this Sunday was going to be like. But anyway, Pat Youngquist, everybody.
Thank you, Billy. Good morning. Yes, if I sneeze, you'll know why. You know, when I agreed to give this stewardship talk, I had no idea I was going to be following Tinkerbell. And I know that many of you, if you were here last week for our God on Broadway Peter Pan service, you certainly saw that Tinkerbell was a memorable part of that service. And for those that missed it, Tinkerbell, a.k.a. Helen Downing over there, brought us our stewardship moment. After eating poison cake and almost dying, we discovered that we could bring Tink back to life by believing we could raise the budget. Peter Pan led us in applause, shouting, "Believe, believe," bringing Tinkerbell back to us. No, I did not expect to follow Tinkerbell, but I'll see what I can do. I'm standing here before you today, obviously a member of the clergy, but as an adult, I have not always been a member of the clergy. I'm a second career pastor and entering seminary at the age of 42. My first career was in accounting and finance, and I spent a number of years in corporate financial management. When I first came to church as an adult, I had a fairly long absence. I was 33 years old, and I was almost immediately recruited to be the treasurer, having worked in finance before, and I've worked in some aspect of church financial management ever since. When I first came back to church, though, I would venture to say I wasn't much of a giver. I probably put a few dollars in the offering plate, and I didn't really think very much about it. Now, being a financial person, though, it didn't take me very long to figure out, looking around, I realized, of course, that things cost money, and that my few dollars probably weren't doing much to pay the bills. As I began to be more involved with church, I began to give more, and the more I gave, the more I realized that giving is a discipline. It's a spiritual discipline, just like prayer is a spiritual discipline or reading the Bible is a spiritual discipline. Spiritual disciplines allow us to grow in our walk with God. And when we grow in our walk with God, God does amazing things in our lives. You may know that the biblical standard for giving in the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, is a tithe, or 10% of income. Although I've tithed now for many years, it certainly, as I said, was not the way I've always given. I told you I gave nominally when I first came back to church. The first time I heard someone talk about tithing, I was convinced I had heard it wrong. But eventually, I did begin slowly to give more and more of my income to the church. It took a number of years to reach 10%, but I have to say through all of it, I've never looked back. God has been very faithful. As I said, I didn't go from 0 to 10% overnight. My giving may have been at about 3 or 4% the year I decided to tithe. It felt like a plunge, jumping into the water at the deep end of the pool, and I have a fear of water. I had heard the testimonies of others about tithing and how they had been blessed by it, but I was scared. I was worried. How would I pay my bills? I really didn't think I had that much discretionary income. How would my finances work out? What would I be giving up? I also worried because I had recently received a notice from the IRS that they were going to be auditing me. Of course, if my taxes were in order, that may not have been too much of a concern. But unfortunately, the year being audited was a year that I had been married to my ex-husband. Now, he had his own business and he took care of the tax return, which I gave little notice to. I just signed it. Now, that might not sound like, first of all, what an accountant would do or like the smartest thing to do, but with him, it was easier than an argument, and he was prone to violence. I knew he and I didn't come down on the same page in regards to ethics or taxes. Our differing values were a large part of our divorce. So now I was being audited, and I was worried. I was worried about the audit. I was worried about not having the records to substantiate the return. I was worried about how much I would have to pay the IRS because I knew he didn't have any money. And when they came to collect, it was going to be me they were after. So yes, I was worried that year that I made my largest financial commitment to the church. Not too many months later, I got a letter from the IRS telling me that they had decided to drop my case. There was no explanation, just that they were no longer auditing us. Talk about being thankful to God. I had been worried not only about the money, but the amount of time it would take to sort it all out, and of course, dealing with my ex-husband. Not many people look forward to dealing with an ex. Now, am I saying that because I gave more to the church, the IRS dropped my case? Well, I will tell you that I found out a couple of years later from some former IRS agents who had their own tax preparation business that what happened to me was not very common at all. Actually, none of the three of them had ever even seen a letter like the one I had received. So I received an unexpected blessing in an unexpected way the year I began to tithe. The money all worked out, and like I said, I have never looked back. Since that year, God has blessed me in all kinds of ways, both monetary and non-monetary, and many have come in unexpected ways. And let me tell you, it is very freeing not to worry about finances, because I believe that I live in a relationship with God where we are in partnership. I give to God's church, and God provides for my needs, and always with more than I can imagine. Giving to God's church connects us to God and connects us with people who need our help. Think what we could do for the children and youth of our community, the future of our community, if we just doubled what we do now. Not only could we do good in our own community, but we could help countless people around the world in the name of Christ. As Billy said, Commitment Sunday is in 2 weeks, November 20th. You will be asked to make a financial commitment to Asbury. On behalf of Tinkerbell and the Stewardship Committee, between now and then, we ask you to think and to pray about your commitment to Asbury. Giving is a discipline, and it is a step of faith. But I can assure you, it is a step you will never regret. As Tinkerbell told us, Asbury land is a place where dreams come true, and we hope you all are a part of it. Amen.